Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm Tami, fibromyalgia coach, author, and founder of the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute. The goal of this podcast is to empower you with access to the dream team of experts and coaches I've discovered are key to living the fibro life you love. From the comfort of your own home, and maybe even your pajamas, I'll help you take back control of your life and health. To help out with FibroFog, I always include full show notes and additional resources at fibromyalgiapodcast.com. You're listening to the Fibromyalgia Podcast with Tami, episode 19. Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the Oska Pulse. This is an FDA-registered Class 1 medical pain relief device. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I do have another listener shout out for you. And this comment came from my public Facebook page and was posted by Angela McMillan Jenkins. She says, I just discovered your podcast and am loving it. It seems like I have been walking in slow motion before and since my diagnosis. Now I'm beginning to think I can get through this and live a new normal life without being consumed by pain, frustration, and guilt. Thank you. Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you for sharing this. You can live a new normal life and feel better. That is exactly what my team and I want for each and every one of you who's listening here today. Please keep tuning in to our podcast episodes. And if you haven't yet, be sure you go grab a copy of my books for free. They are at fibromyalgiapodcast.com/books. And of course, if there's ever anything we can do to help, you can always request a consultation online as well. I also want to remind everybody that these comments, these reviews, they are fuel for us to keep doing what we're doing, and I love it so much when you guys share your experience with the podcast, whether it's posting on our Facebook page or writing a review in Apple Podcasts. That all really it means a lot to us, and it helps keep us going in the days when it feels like it's hard. I also want to let you guys know about an event that is happening right now. As you're listening to this episode, if you're listening to it right when it came out, then this summit, the Conquering Fibromyalgia Summit, is happening right now. It runs from September 9th through the 20th, 2019, and this is an online summit. For those of you who are listening, like I said, as this episode comes out, this is happening right now, so make sure you go to this website so you can participate. For those of you who are listening after the fact, like if you ran across the podcast a little bit farther down the road and are listening to this episode afterwards, then this may or may not be available. Just depends on what they decide to do with replays. But this summit, the Conquering Fibromyalgia Summit, really has a lot of amazing speakers. I'm one of the speakers, so is Dr. Ginevra Lipton. There are other doctors, researchers, and advocates, and it's hosted by a doctor who also has fibromyalgia. So it's going to be really amazing interviews. You might be able to tell from the title, it is all about conquering fibromyalgia, and that is the website as well. So if you're interested in checking this out, just go to conqueringfibromyalgia.com, and you'll be able to register to get those interviews. They're actually doing them by email, so just register with your email address. They will send those interviews right to your email box, and for those of you who are listening after the fact, you'll just have to go to that website and see if they're offering replays. I am giving an exclusive bonus class for all the conference attendees. In addition to my talk that I do as part of the summit, I'm doing an additional class that is going to be a live class all about how to master your fatigue. And by live class, I mean that exactly. I am going to be teaching it live. It will be online, but it is going to be live. That means you are going to get to interact with me directly as part of the class. We'll have all of this information, all the dates, the link, and everything, all in today's show notes. Just go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com/19. And I really hope that you'll register and take advantage of all the amazing training that's part of this summit. All right, now on to today's episode. As I mentioned at the beginning, today I'm going to be talking about the Oska Pulse. And before I get started, I have to do my little medical disclaimer that probably should have been doing all along, but just make sure that you guys all understand that the information in this podcast should not be considered medical advice. I'm definitely educating you, but it is not intended to replace you working with a doctor or other healthcare provider. So take this as education and take it to your doctor. And, your doctor is also, of course, welcome to listen to this episode if they want to learn more about this device. Now, I'm going to give you first a little history on Oska. I will tell you a little bit about the founder who I'm going to be interviewing. Then we are going to jump right into the interview. When the interview is over, please keep listening. I actually just received my own Oska Pulse right after I completed my interview with Greg, and I'm actually going to be doing an unboxing. So I will try to describe for those of you who are listening to this episode, but we will have the video of the unboxing out at fibromyalgiapodcast.com. So if you want to actually see the device, Greg also demonstrates it during our interview. So you can just go to the website, fibromyalgiapodcast.com/19, and you can watch that video and see the device, see a little bit more about how it works, and watch the unboxing. Also at the very end and during my interview with Greg, we also have a discount code which will get you a $55 discount if you wish to purchase your own Oska Pulse. All right, so Oska Wellness was founded in 2015 after aiding in the recovery of a koala badly burned in a brush fire. The prototype of the Oska Pulse, which was developed by Mike and Shirley Hawker in Australia, the Oska Pulse found its way to the United States. When the device landed in the hands of founder Greg Houlgate, who was already familiar with the pain-relieving effects of PEMF, which, by the way, stands for Pulsed Electromagnetic Field. He became reinvigorated, I should say, by the technology and really saw a massive improvement in a health condition his father had, which he will actually describe in our interview. He'll tell you a little bit more about that. Greg redesigned the product, brought the disruptive technology to market for chronic pain sufferers nationwide. And you'll hear in the interview why we talk about this being disruptive technology, because it's a technology that has existed for a long time, yet also is completely new, which is a contradiction, I realize, but you'll understand when we get to the interview. For those of you who are curious, like I was, the name Oska honors that Aussie koala. His name was Oscar, and they decided to call the device and the company Oska, because as Americans and Australians, we would both say it the same way. So that's where the name comes from, which I think is great. Which also, for those of you who have wondered how to pronounce that, whether it's Oska or Oska, just think Oscar and pretend like you're Australian. It's Oska. Today, I am interviewing the founder, Greg Houlgate. And like I mentioned, stick around after the interview because I'm going to do that unboxing. And I'm also going to be giving you the code where you can get $55 off of your own Oska Pulse. So, Greg is the founder, he's a board member, he's the chief product and business development officer of Oska Wellness, and has been an innovator of new technologies in both medical and consumer products. He has over 25 years of senior management, sales, and marketing experience in a whole bunch of companies. I'm just going to mention a few of these just because I think you'll recognize some of them. He worked with GJO's Global Recovery Science Division, which is a Blackstone company, On-Site Network, which is an interactive media company, West Coast Trends, who is a leading travel luggage and golf bag provider, Porsche Design, and Callaway Golf. Greg holds a Bachelor of Science degree in economics from UC Irvine and an MBA from the University of Phoenix. All right, awesome. Welcome, Greg. Thank you so much for being here and doing this interview with me.
Thank you for having me on today.
Awesome. So I first became aware of Oska Pulse because several of my clients and many of my students use it. And it's really become a key factor in a lot of their fibromyalgia toolboxes, one of the key ways that they manage their pain. And so that's how I got introduced. So I have tons of questions. I'm super excited to ask them all. And I think the best place to start is just like, how did this even come to be? Like, let's start at the beginning. What is the Pulse?
So first of all, so great intro. So I think most good ideas come from necessity, right? So the original device was actually developed by a husband and wife in Western Australia. And he is an engineer and she's a craft mother nurse. And they have a daughter that suffers from chronic pain. I don't know if she's actually been diagnosed with fibro, but a lot of her conditions are high inflammatory state. So they have been, for about 10 years, they were playing with PEMF or pulsed electromagnetic field devices. And again, the technology's been around for 60 years. And used in lots of different healthcare systems around the world. So fast forward, they developed a prototype of a miniaturized version, and they had brought it to the US to find a way to take it to market. And them being an engineer and a nurse weren't really business people, but had been around the technology for a long time and had used versions of it to help people in Australia. And so I got introduced to the device, and I was told by the people that introduced it to me that it does all these great things. And like most people that have dealt with people that are in pain, I was skeptical. Except for my father, who's now 89, just celebrated his 89th birthday, but he suffers from a condition called peripheral arterial disease, and neuropathy, and diabetic wounds, and severe edema. And for the last 13 years, I've been working with his doctors and caregivers to keep him from losing his legs, because with the diabetic wounds, they continue to want to amputate. So I've actually taken 2 sabbaticals over the last 13 years, working with his doctors, doing everything from hyperbaric chambers to chelation to all kinds of invasive surgeries. And fortunately, we've been able to save his legs. But about 3.5 years ago, he was having a really bad episode, and I was introduced to this device. So I took this little tiny device, it's about the size of your cell phone, and I put it between his legs. And after a very short trial in the same day, his legs went from the size of a grapefruit back to normal, and he was able to walk for the first time in 3 days.
That's amazing.
And that was my moment where I said, okay, time out. What's going on? And the reason why I got introduced to it was I've spent the last 13 years in medical devices, working with TENS units and ultrasound and and muscle stim and all kinds of different technologies that help people get out of pain and get back to being ambulatory and back to regular life. And I know about this technology, but I didn't know that you could miniaturize it and make it personal and portable. And so that's how I got introduced to it. So we redesigned the product, and put a brand on it and took it to market. And in the process of doing so, the FDA made us a Class 1 device in 2 weeks.
Wow, that seems awfully fast for the way FDA moves.
Yeah, and I was actually called by the examiner, and they said, please take this product to market. We need products like this in the U.S. So I was inspired by that and my father to really push hard on bringing this forward.
Awesome. Had you ever, with all the work that you've done with medical devices, had you ever seen results like that?
I'll be honest with you, no. I was a bit shocked, but I did spend, and will give you a little insight to my personality. I did spend the next 20 hours reading everything I could find on PubMed. So I probably read close to 10, maybe 1,200 abstracts and probably 100 or 200 clinical studies, and found that this technology's existed for 6 decades, and there's over 10,000 studies on it. But typically, it's been used by the medical device industry for bone growth stimulation, for wound healing, and for depression. But those devices are very large. They tend to be about the size of a fishing box, and they cost anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000. So they're not really approachable for the average person that could use the benefit.
Right. That sounds like more like a device your doctor might have in the office, and you come in and get a treatment and go home, not something that you just have at home to use when you need it.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And by the way, I'm guilty. I was in the med device business and sold bone growth stimulators that billed out at about $5,000, and we had a lot of success with them. But when you're done using them after your prescription, typically a 30, 60, or 90-day prescription, they are dead. You can't turn them back on. The battery stops working. So they become landfill. Oh, so gosh. I didn't like that business plan.
No.
I didn't think we were helping patients with that. So that's one of the reasons why I left that business and got involved with this company.
That's amazing. So tell us what PEMF does. Like, how does it work?
Sure. So PEMF is also pronounced PEMF, or pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. And it is based on the science that your cells are electrical fields. And if you can increase and decrease the polarity of those fields, you can re-regulate the cell. When you re-regulate the cell, you allow for nutrients in and waste to go out of the cell. By doing so, by increasing that circulation at a cellular level, it allows the tissue to recover. So the trick is, all the other devices out there tend to run on a single frequency, and they tend to need a practitioner to dial in a frequency for your body. What we did was we took that science and we send a signal that frequencies on nerve, bone, soft tissue, and your circulatory system, which includes your lymphatic system, which is very important because all of those systems work in congress to help your body either, one, be in distress, or two, feel better. And so that's what's different about PEMF in the Oska device over all other devices.
So the other devices are keying into like one of those things?
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. So one of the things I learned when I was talking with your staff was that it actually doesn't have to be on your body, that it has a field that you're working with. You want to talk about that a little?
Correct. Yeah. So I'm going to turn the device on, and you may or may not see a little light in the background on here. So that's just an indicator to let you know that it's on. The field is about the size of a beach ball. So the beauty of that is it could go onto my shirt. It doesn't need to be on my skin. So what's really important about that for your audience is that, and at least this has been my experience, most of the fibro warriors and people out there that are really struggling with that condition have comorbidities and they have other things going on. But a lot of times, even wearing clothing is painful.
Right.
So the beauty of this is that if you say you have distress in your elbow and maybe your fibro is emanating down your forearm, you can literally put it next to you while you're sitting down, or put it in your purse while it's next to you, and the field will transmit into your body. But that's really important point. So this is a non-ionizing pulsed electromagnetic field. This device, your cell phone, is an ionizing electromagnetic field. This is safe. This is not so safe.
I was hoping
against our head on.
I was hoping we were going to get to that, because I actually just told somebody last week that I'm super curious about this, because, electromagnetic fields, we hear about cell phones being bad. Right. So how is this good? So I'm glad you addressed that.
So that's the difference. And what's really important about that is the FDA has oversight over 187,000 different medical technologies. So just think about that for a second. 187. Of all the technologies that they have oversight on, this is the only technology, pulse electromagnetic field, that has never had an adverse event ever reported to the FDA in 60 years. So it is the safest thing you can use. And for somebody that's really struggling with inflammation and pain, and fibro being one of those conditions, and as you know, on the spectrum of different things from POT syndrome to CRPS, they're all inflammatory situations. So people will do crazy things like ketamine injections and go and do chelation and do these very expensive wild things. This is an opportunity for them to try something that's not going to hurt them, first of all, which is big. There's no side effects that's ever been recorded, and it can be reused over and over and over. So it adds up over time and helps them over time.
Right. How long does it last? Like when you turn it on and it runs, what's a typical cycle, all that stuff?
Yeah. So the protocol, or what we like to tell people, is the use case, right? So it's got a 90-minute program. That program cycles through those different cell types, nerve, bone, soft tissue, and circulatory, over the 90 minutes repeatedly. But you can turn it back on again and run it again for another 90 minutes. So you cannot overdo it, which is the beauty of it. What we've discovered and what we've learned, and we don't have studies from our own device with fibro, but what we do have is a lot of patient testimonials. What they tell us is they tend to be very sensitive to electromagnetic fields. So they'll tend to put it in maybe 8 or 9 inches away from them to start, and they'll move it a little bit closer as their body adapts to the signal. Because it's a healthy signal and their body's not in an unhealthy place.
Right, exactly. You can have a healing crisis.
Right. And which is exactly the right explanation.
Yep.
Yeah. We don't want that. And we don't want that. And the other thing that we recommend too, and this may be hard for some people, is if your body's low in sodium and potassium, magnesium, and you're not hydrated, it won't work as well. And so we highly recommend that if you work collectively with your diet, a nutritionist or your doctor, try to give yourself the best chance to recover and feel better.
Right. And, the hydration thing is I wouldn't have thought about that, but that totally makes sense, because electricity transmits through water faster, easier. And if it's not.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's simple science, right? It's actually very simple science. And we don't think about that we can actually impact ourselves positively by drinking water. It should be clean water, right? So,
right. We're not talking Diet Coke here.
Yeah, and you should have good nutrition in your body to help accelerate that process. So those are things that, common sense, but be surprised. A lot of people will feel something different. They're like, well, you're not hydrated, your body's not going to respond as well. And so, really and by the way, it's not a cure-all. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not immediate. It took you years to get into this condition. It's going to take you time to unravel. We recommend people use it as much as they possibly can. The first 30 days, we tell them use it as much as you can. You'll start to feel better. Typically in 2 to 3 weeks, you'll start to feel better. And the crazy thing is, the typical patient tends to have a pretty positive response within the first couple of weeks.
That's cool. So does it primarily work then on the inflammation that we're feeling, or is it working on other things then as well?
Yeah. So I like to give, for the layperson, so you may have people listening that aren't necessarily scientific. Think about when you were in high school and you had that the lock that you had to use on your locker, right? So you had a combination lock. So think of the cells as like a combination. So if you can dial in that combination correctly, you'll allow for the most amount of access of nutrition and allow the waste in the cell to get out so that the cell can re-regulate. So that's how it works physiologically. The science behind that is very, very well studied and very well understood. So we call that the mechanism of action. So anybody that's listening that understands medical stuff will talk. The drugs they take, there's a mechanism of action in the drug. So most doctors understand that, and providers. A lot of patients don't quite understand why they're being given a drug, because they're trying to accelerate some sort of a mechanism of action. Our device does exactly what your body does or wants to do. And a lot of times drugs don't. They're trying to interrupt a signal to make something else happen. And so this is why this is, obviously one of the safer ways of helping yourself.
Okay, cool. And what kinds of pain does it seem to work on best? What things does it work on best?
So I may have to break this question down in a couple parts for you.
Please do.
Okay, so
I don't know what I'm even asking here. So
no. So what does it work best on? So what we try to guide people on, and what the literature is also supports, is that PEMF works really, really good on inflammatory tissue. So if you think about that, so a headache or PTSD or plantar fasciitis or spinal stenosis, they're all inflammatory states. So we have patients that have claimed that they're getting relief for all of those conditions. Mm-hmm. So fibro is in part a inflammatory state. It's not all inflammatory. Some of it is disruptive nerve signal, and some of it is DNA, like you were born with certain wirings that's very difficult. So for a fibro patient, we tell them, if you're going to use the device, you really need to kind of work your way into it. And you also need to understand what other kinds of therapy you're doing to help benefit your body. So when you ask what kind of pain, so it works for all types of inflammatory states. So I personally use it for my low back. Mm-hmm. So I have an L6 vertebrae, so I should be taller, but I'm not. But I have an L6. So everyone has down to an L5, and then their sacrum. I have an SI joint. I have an L6, so it wants to fuse with my sacrum. And so for me, for the last 3 years, I've been using this. When I go and get an X-ray, my joint's not connected. So I have all kinds of circulation. The tissue is very strong, and by the way, also flexible. So that's how I use it. Other people use it, and I also use it for when I travel. I stick it under my pillow at night, and I sleep like a baby. And so we highly recommend that people use it for that, because you need circulation to calm down your central nervous system to relax and sleep. We discovered that because we work with the Navy SEALs, and 2 weeks after using the device, they called us back in and said, hey, we thought we were going to use this for soft tissue injury. The guys in the field were using it in their packs at night because it's so bright in the dark. They didn't want anyone to see them out in the field, so they stuck it in their packs, but they all came in off the field claiming they had better sleep. So guess what? So all of us start telling you could use it for that. And guess what? We find out that people that use it get better sleep. Well, who doesn't want that? Right.
Right. And with fibromyalgia, that is huge, because number one, if you don't have good sleep, then nothing else really works. Right. And number two, we have bad sleep. Like, that's one of the hallmarks of fibromyalgia. Mm-hmm. So anything that helps us get better sleep is golden.
Yeah. So I would tell you, we know that sleep and pain are absolutely connected. Yep. There's a study that was just completed at University of Colorado Boulder on the mRNA. So you have DNA, and then you have 3 different types of RNA in your system. So the mRNA is the communicator. If you don't get 7 hours of sleep, restful sleep a night, that mRNA does not get to do its job. It is a root cause for pain and sleep. So we haven't done the study yet, but we know that our device increases circulation. So if the mRNA is part of the cell activity, and we can increase that or accelerate that process, we think there's a link there. We haven't done the study work yet, but doctors and professionals have kind of indicated that's probably the missing link. So we recommend, so a fibro patient, you absolutely benefit from sticking under your pillow. The funny thing is that your spouse or loved one, if there's someone else in bed with you, or your pet, also gets sleep. Right. So we have people claiming that all the time. And so that's what we highly recommend.
That's cool. That's cool. There's so many fun things that happen in the brain when we sleep, like flushing out the toxins in your brain. I bet it really helps with a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. We haven't done the study work on it, but we can tell you that the 3.5 years, you learn a lot about how people use a device. Think of all the things that we have. Like we have toothbrushes we use to clean our toilets, right? Like when did that happen?
Right.
Right. So hopefully don't use it again at home, but people use things differently. So we knew when we started the company that this is going to help people get out of pain by increasing circulation. We didn't realize to what level it was going to help them. And so it's one of the reasons why the product has been so successful with so many different types of pain conditions.
That's really cool. One of the things I'm excited to try is I quite often do a lot of travel. I fly from Seattle to Washington, D.C. often, and that 6-hour plane ride, I end up with swollen feet quite often, even with compression socks and fun things. And what you were talking about, your dad's story, I'm like, I'm going to have to try that.
This is my trusty travel companion. It is in the seat with me in the plane, because I fly 50% of the time. And it's in my hotel room. And think of all the strange hotel rooms you have to stay in when you travel, right?
Yeah.
So most people have a hard time sleeping in their own bed, let alone a foreign bed. For me, I stick it on the pillow. It's like I'm at home. Like it puts me to sleep. So yeah, for travel, and especially when you're going to altitude, this is really, really helpful.
So that's not one of the things you have to turn off when they tell you to turn off your devices?
No, it's fun. So we actually are TSA approved for travel.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because it is an electronic device with a battery and it's rechargeable, right? So you can actually recharge it on the plane if they've got an outlet there for you. But it's kind of funny.
So what is the most unusual use case you have heard that you're willing to share? Okay. I'll add that willing to share part.
So that's a good one. So I walked in the other day and one of our staff had it strapped to her head. And I said, "Were you out drinking last night? Like, was something I should know about?" And she suffers from migraines. And I can tell you, I've seen people doing this, and I will tell you my own personal experience. I was about 6 months in with the business, and we were shipping product. And I had come home because I was feeling kind of run down, and I sat down on my couch, and my head was starting to hurt. So I went to go grab a bottle of Advil, and I'm like, "Seriously, Greg, come on." Like,
come on, dude.
So I grabbed a baseball cap and I stuck it in my cap. And I kid you not, about 20 minutes later, I was like the light, like everything had gone clear.
Wow.
And I was like, wait, so about once a year I get a migraine. So every time I feel that come on, and it's only been a few times in the last few years, I'll put it into a hat, walk around with it. 23 minutes later, I'm like clear as day.
That's amazing.
So I know it sounds silly, but it really works. I mean, and so yeah, there's lots of stories. Anecdotally, we have a lot of people that they love their pets, right? So their companion cat or dog. I've witnessed my own dog that I had that had really bad hip dysplasia. She wore it on her hip, and 30 minutes later, she's up running around the house. And nobody could figure out what was going on. She wouldn't leave the device until it was done running its cycle.
She knew.
She knew. And animals, and they use it in horse racing. They use this technology in horse racing and other things. So animals know, right? So I know you asked me what's the unusual. So I do think using it on your pet's unusual, but we have a lot of people that will tell you that it's an absolute godsend for their loved ones.
Sure. I totally can see that. So, tell us a little bit about the research. I know one of the things that your team sent me was a page with some of the research on there. And one of the things I thought was cool is you did a double blind study. I assume that you had a device like that, one with guts and one with just a light, something like that.
Yeah. So we said lights are on, nobody was home. So,
perfect.
So we actually we did at Scripps here in San Diego and La Jolla, and Scripps is a really well respected research institute. We worked with the chairman of the pain management, who's one of the founders of really innovative integrated pain management, and several other doctors there. And we did something and I was told I was crazy when I signed up for it. So just to declare that up front. I told them we will take any patient we don't, as long as they have chronic pain, that means they've had it for more than 3 months. I said, we'll take any patient. Let's try to narrow it down to back and knee. But some of them had comorbidity. Some were overweight. Some had had a car accident. Some were prior military. But we didn't care. So do back and knee. So we did 15 patients on a real device, and we did 15 on a placebo. So we basically turned off the pulse electromagnetic field. They used it for 3 hours a day. 100% of the 15 patients that used it over a 2-week period had clinically reduced pain. The 15 that used a placebo had a net 0 effect. So there was no placebo. And if you look at the literature for pulse electromagnetic field, that is consistent across the last 6 decades of studies, because you can run the signal without you feeling it.
Right.
Now, I will tell you, someone's listening right now, someone's going to get this device and go, I can feel it. There is 1% of the population that we know can feel pulse electromagnetic field. And it's happened, we're at a trade show, I go into a doctor's office, there's always 1 out of 100 that knows it. But the placebo effect is very valid. And so that pilot study led us into further stuff. We're working with the National Institute of Health right now to do studies, further pain studies now.
Cool. That's pretty unusual to have 0 on the folks who are getting a placebo, because our minds are so powerful that we often see just because
the examiners were totally baffled. They thought surprised, but then we showed them all the literature from the other studies, because we didn't want to. And by the way, they couldn't tell which device was which, right? In fact, I got a phone call from one of the doctors about a weekend and goes, I think I know what's going on. I said, no, you don't. And when we got the data, we showed him the data on the back end. He was absolutely blown away.
That's awesome. For our people who might not know, would you define the clinically significant improvement?
Sure. So typically, if someone were taking a drug, you would expect a 30 to 40% reduction in pain across the majority of the audience. You don't ever expect to get it across all of them. So we had people that were dropping from an 8 to a 5, 5 to a 2. So usually a 2 to 3 point swing for most of those patients, and in a 2-week period on 3 hours only a day.
That's amazing.
So that's a pretty large thing. What's interesting is every one of the 30 patients asked to buy a device at the end of the study. So that tells you the power of the mind, but also the belief in what they were seeing. Because obviously these patients are all sitting in different clinics, but they talk to each other, right? So you try to avoid that. But at the end of the study, they all say, like, you got to get this device. This thing's working. It's amazing.
Right. Wow, that's really cool. So for everybody who's listening in, I just wanted to stop and remind you all, we have the show notes out there. This will be fibromyalgiapodcast.com/19. And we'll have links to everything out there. I also have a code for you guys. If you're interested with everything that you're hearing here on trying the Oska Pulse for yourself, we've got a code out there that'll get you $55 off. Yes, I do get a little bit from that. It goes to help produce the podcast, so it's all cool. Just use the code FibroCoach, FibroCoach. We'll have that out there in the show notes. All right. Anything else that you want to share with us that we should know about Oska?
Yeah. So just so you know, our mission has been from day one is to help people get out of pain without drugs. And so we're not saying throw away your drugs. We're not saying you throw away your therapy or don't go to your doctor. What we're saying is in your toolkit, and I think you said it really nice at the beginning of this interview, that you need to know what's out there. So we're a new device. The technology is not new. We're a new device. We're $400. You're going to give your listeners a discount of $55. They can't buy it any better anywhere else. That is the best deal. Give it a try. If it doesn't work, call us. We'll make the product right here in the US. We stand behind the product. If it doesn't work, we have a money back guarantee on the product. So for those that are really struggling, and unfortunately, we're probably their last ditch effort for some of these people, we'd like to be the front of their journey, right? So if someone's getting newly diagnosed, that they're also listening to you and talking inside the communities, they're giving this a try early on. And so give them a chance to get better. And that's really, our missions we're linked. We're trying to help people. And I love that you're educating everyone about what's going on and empowering people to figure out a way to do things better. This is one of those tools. So,
Totally. Yeah.
And we have content around that, and we have a really informed staff. Our team really cares about our patients that are working with us on the device, and our providers. We have healthcare providers that work with it as well. So we appreciate the opportunity to share about what we're doing. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And for those of you who might not know, Oska actually donated a device that we gave away as part of our last graduation back in July. And I've just noticed, like, you guys show up everywhere. Like, I'm always seeing events and things. There's always seems to be a device that's been donated. So I can tell that, like, your mission really is to help people get better, not just sell a bunch of products.
Yeah. No, we're really committed. We're really committed to helping people. I mean, I've lost a brother to substance abuse because he didn't have ways of getting away from it. I've lost family members. I think everybody who's listening has their own story. You gotta really care about people. You can't be in this business. I don't think it's possible.
No, I don't think so either. And unfortunately, the way everything's going right now with opioid medication, a lot of us who are in pain, we're having options removed, and it's nice to have something that maybe can be added.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to that point real quick. So the opioids, over time interrupt sleep. They interrupt the body's chance to heal. And so what we've learned is that, and this is the studies we're doing with the NIH, that if you remediate people off of their opioid and you put this device on them, you'll find in 3 or 4 weeks, people stop reaching for their drugs because they don't have the inflammation and the pain, and they're sleeping. So how nice a benefit is that? So that was a total gift to us that we'd be able to help people that way. And so the community of fibro patients, again, they tend to be linked with lots of other communities because they have comorbidities. But if you're identifying with that and you're really struggling with that, you give this a chance. You have an opportunity to get better, and we like to spread the word of hope. So appreciate your efforts.
Absolutely. I just had a thought real quick. Is there anyone who shouldn't use this? Is there any interactions with anything?
Sure. So there's 3 contraindications by the FDA. So if you have a pacemaker, and pacemakers fire at 800 hertz and above, so you need to talk to your doctor, and this runs at 150 hertz and below. So they don't even interact, but you have to check with your doctor. Anyone who's on active chemotherapy, we're contraindicated for, because we can't study that population. And anybody who's pregnant, we can't study that population. So those are the 3 contraindications. And but if you had like a total knee replacement, right? So that's a titanium joint typically. So it's non-metallic, and this is non-ionizing. So there's no interactions with that. But we always tell people, recommend them, look, you're going to try a new therapy, do something, talk to your doctor. That's not going to hurt you. And by the way, you might educate that doctor. He or she may go educate some patients.
Totally.
And help them without having to put them on drugs. So.
Right. So this is something that we can add to our routines, whatever medications you're on, whatever other therapies you might be doing. There, other than those 3 things you mentioned, there's no reason not to try it.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. One more question for you. They just kind of keep popping into my head. I can't help it. Have you noticed a change with like mood and things like that? I know you mentioned PEMF for like depression. Yes. I imagine this then would be the same. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's sometimes a really hard thing when you have a chronic illness that just won't go away.
Yeah. So the experience for us has been, and again, I've been 13 years in med device. So I've been everything from long-term care to rehab centers and hospitals. And when you get somebody just even from an 8 to a 6, you kind of change their day. They go from an 8 to a 6 to a 6 to a 4. You kind of change their life, right? So that instantly lifts your mood when you start to feel better, because now you can get up and you can reach for a dish, or you can go for a walk, or you're not so miserable in the morning when you get up and you're not getting sick. So we believe they go hand in hand. And typically the reports we get are, you really, really changed my day and you changed my life. And if you read the testimonials on our website, They're all unaudited. They're right there. You can read them, good and bad, and you'll see what people's real experiences are. And I'm sure a lot of people that are listening to this podcast will recognize themselves in some of those messages.
For sure. And I know that a lot of the advocates that I know, especially bloggers, a lot of them have actually written about this device. So if you guys go out there and even just search for the Oska Pulse, search for reviews, you'll probably find a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
but yet not enough, right? Because we still have way more people to help.
Yeah. It's only 1 in 3 Americans in chronic pain. So what percentage of that is fibro patients?
Yeah, we're about 3 to 6% of the population. So in women, it's higher. So it's about 1 in 20 women, and usually about 1 in 60 to 80 men.
Right. So if you walk down the street, there's a good chance in a busy street you're going to bump into somebody, or more importantly, somebody that knows them that's dealing with it.
Exactly. I was just somewhere right before our call, and the woman I was talking to at the store, her neighbor has fibromyalgia. So you're going to run into people everywhere.
Yeah. So I think as a disease state, it's something that we've learned a lot in the last 20 years. I think I was talking to you earlier about this. It's really misunderstood. It's a silent and invisible disease, and chronic pain as a category is really a silent disease, and it's invisible, and nobody gets to get inside your head but you.
Yeah.
So finding, communities and people that can help lift you up and bring you forward, the work that you're doing, that's the kind of stuff we want to support and be behind. So we're really committed to that.
Awesome. What research is exciting to you about fibromyalgia specifically, and what do you think we need to study more? I've been asking everybody those 2 questions.
Yeah, no. So great question. So one of our medical advisors, Dr. Jonathan Cost, he's in West Hartford, Connecticut. I sat through a day of lectures, and they were looking at the chemical reaction in the body and some of the biomarkers that they believe exist for fibro that are unique and can be identified. I don't know enough about the science yet to tell you these are the ones you should look at, but I will tell you that the NIH, the FDA, the National Institute of Drug Abuse, the Health and Human Services, all of them are focused on, can we map biomarkers for conditions? And if we understand it, because now we understand genomes, right? So we can do 23andMe, and we might even be related. We don't even know it, right?
Right.
You're starting to find that. And so I would say the area of focus is really around understanding where the disruptions are in the cellular chain. And as they find those, then you'll be able to identify those things. We won't be able to cure everything, but we sure as heck might be able to go in and put some buffers in place to kind of help people live more healthy lives. And I think that's, and I think our device is part of that toolkit of that action. But if I was someone that was really focused on researching fibro, I would start looking at what types of biomarkers are they studying and why.
Right. Because if we know what's going funky in our bodies, right, then we can better target fixing that, right? Yes. Or addressing it, or like you said, putting in a buffer that makes it not matter as much.
Yeah, but I don't like the word mutation because it connotates lots of things, but that's how they talk about in gene therapy.
Yep.
And so cancer, they're doing it, and heart condition and all these other, so they're looking at these. And so we're on the periphery of that. We work with a lot of those groups. And so for someone that's, again, working with a fibro patient, which tends to have comorbidities, so they'll probably find a string of different mutations that are going on that, by the way, I believe they're very personal to you. I don't think whatever's driving your fibro could be totally different than the person sitting next to you.
Yep.
And so I think that's what they're discovering is people weren't dreaming this up that, hey, my pain is really unique to me. It actually, at a DNA level, might just be. So
right. Which would totally explain why so many of us have similar symptoms, but then like what works for us is completely different.
Correct. And I think we're at the age now where we're starting to really understand the difference in that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, it's been fun totally geeking out on the science with you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Any last thoughts for us before we wind this up?
No, I'm excited to see forums like this that are starting to come up for patients, because I do think that when we were kids, our parents just went to the doctor and were told what to do, and they just did it. And we don't have that type of orientation to information these days. And so these types of vehicles that you're supporting and that your listeners are paying attention to, that's how we're getting the information out quicker and better. And so, I stay on the fight, really. That's my comment to you.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much. And thanks for all you guys are doing too, because like I said, we need more options, not less options. And so I'm glad you guys are out there doing what you do too.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
All right, you guys, thanks for sticking in a little bit longer after the interview. After I finished my interview with Greg, I actually got the delivery of my very own Oska Pulse. They had sent it to me earlier, and Greg and I were joking around about the fact that the doorbell was probably going to ring during our interview. It didn't. It was right afterwards. But I thought, since I got it today, and since it happened right after the interview, it might be kind of fun to do a quick unboxing for you guys. Now, though those of you who are listening to this only, I will do my best to describe what you're seeing. There's a few things that I want to point out. You're wondering, if you're doing an unboxing, how do you know already? Well, here's the deal, you guys. I actually recorded this unboxing once already, but I did not even think about the fact that when I turned the device on to show you guys what would happen with that, it created feedback in my microphone. So it created this horrible buzzing noise. And so I know, especially for those of us with fibromyalgia, that wasn't anything that I could leave in. We needed to re-record so that there wouldn't be that awful buzzing noise, because that just would be not happy for fibro brains. So there were a few fun things in the box that I really want to make sure and point out to you guys. So I will describe that in words for those of you who are just listening on audio. And if you are interested in actually seeing the unboxing, go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com/19. That will be the show notes page for this episode, and we will have the whole video there. So you'll be able to see Greg's demonstration of it. You also see this unboxing that I'm about to do. I also want to remind you guys that we've got all the links for the study that Greg talked about. That will be out there. We'll have links to the Oska Wellness website. We will also have links to, pictures so you can see it. The discount code that you guys can get, that's out there. For those of you who are listening, the discount code is simply FibroCoach. FibroCoach, all one word. That's the discount code that'll get you $55 off. Yes, that is an affiliate link. That means that I do get a little bit of a kickback on that, but honestly, we use that money to go right back into producing this podcast, paying for things like the transcription and the video production and the sound editing and the hosting and all of the things. So if you guys don't want to use the code, that's totally fine too. Just go to oskawellness.com. You'll be able to order right there. But who's going to say no to $55 off? That's a pretty good deal. All right. So this is the box. I made sure it's off on the inside so it won't interfere with the sound. It's just this nice box in a sleeve. And when you slip the sleeve off here, you can see the device on the inside. It's actually really nicely packaged. The device itself, for those of you who are listening, it is an oval shape. It's got some black, grippy, like rubberized part to it, which is nice because it's not going to slip out of your hand. It's also going to stay where you put it. If you want to put it somewhere, it's not going to slip off the table or anything like that. And then between the rubberized surface, for those of you who are listening, there's like a clear blue. You can actually see some of the some of the insides of it, which is, in my opinion, looks really cool. It also looks super techy and sciencey, which is super fun. It does use a micro USB port, which I love because I'm actually going to be taking this traveling with me, and that means I don't have to take another cable or another device. So it'll be super easy to charge because I'm already taking one of those cables with me because I charge my noise canceling headphones that I use on the plane. So I'll be able to use the same thing there. And then there's a round button here, which I actually won't press because that'll turn it on and you'll hear the buzzing. So when we get to the end, I'll actually show you that. The other thing about this that I want to, for those of you who are watching, I want to compare the size to my phone. So you can see, let me get it in the camera there. You can see it's about the same width as my phone. It's a little bit shorter than my phone and a little bit wider than my phone. If I stack them up here, you can see the thickness compared to my phone, and you can see, it's a little bit shorter, a little bit wider. So you can kind of see that there. Just for those of you who are listening in audio, I'm comparing it to an iPhone XS. So it's about 3 times the thickness and just a tiny bit shorter and just a tiny bit wider. So it's basically the size of a cell phone, which I think is great. That's a good size. A lot of us carry our cell phones around like in our pockets or in our purses. This isn't that much different. It is thicker, but the size itself is pretty much the same. The other thing about this that Greg did mention, but I think it's important to highlight, is that the device itself, because it creates a field, it doesn't have to be right on you. So, for instance, me sitting here at my desk, I could, if I didn't have the microphone on, I could actually have it sitting right here next to me on the desk, and the field would reach far enough that it would reach my arm, it would reach, my belly across my body that way. It's not enough that it would reach my feet on the floor, and probably not enough to totally reach my head. But if I had a sore arm or, even abdominal pain sitting right here on the desk, it's actually going to reach that far, which is cool. The other thing that is awesome that he did point out for those of us who have allodynia, who have that sensitivity where even clothes hurt to wear, that means it doesn't have to touch your body in order to work. I'm also super excited to try it for headaches and to try it for sleep. I'm going to be sticking it under my pillow tonight just to see what happens and see if it makes any difference in my headaches. You guys probably know, because I mentioned it a few times, that I've dealt with chronic headaches since I was a kid. The first neurologist I went to, I was in high school. So it's been a long time that I've had headaches, and there's a lot of things that I've done to help manage them and to help manage migraines. But even though I've got my fibro totally under control, headaches aren't where I would love them to be just yet. So yes, I'm going to try putting that thing on my head and seeing what it does for headaches, because that'll be super interesting. Since it works so well on inflammation, I'm interested in other things as well. When I go get a massage, when my massage therapist works a little bit too deep and I can tell that, I'm a little, not just flared up, but my body, my tissue itself feels puffy and flared up. It'll be interesting to see if that helps calm it down. And like I said in the interview, when I travel, when I'm sitting in an airplane for 6 hours, that blood flow doesn't move quite the same. And even with compression socks, I sometimes end up with, puffy feet and ankles. So I'm super curious to see how that helps me when I travel. So I will be letting you guys know. If you decide to try the Oska Pulse, I would love to hear from you guys what you thought as well. So I am going to try to hold this next to the camera and not next to the microphone. In fact, I think what I what I might do is turn the microphone off for a quick second, just for those of you who are watching this, so you can see what happens when you turn it on. So I'll hold it up here by the camera and turn the microphone off for a quick second. All right. So for those of you who were listening, hopefully that all worked. So if you were watching, what you saw is I hit the button once, and the lights started flashing, just to let you know that it was on. That's how you know, because most of us aren't gonna feel this at all. So that's just to let you know that it's on, and then just to make sure that it didn't interfere with our sound. Then if you need to turn it back off before the cycle is finished, the 90-minute cycle is finished, you just push that button 3 times and it turns it back off. So those of you who were listening and it wasn't very exciting for you, it was just a few minutes of silence. But that's what happened during those few minutes of silence. It was quite magical. All right. So just to give you guys a little bit of heads up for the things we have coming up in the podcast, we do have Dr. Jared Younger scheduled. He had said yes a few weeks ago, but with his teaching schedule, we weren't able to actually get him on the calendar. But we have him scheduled now. He will actually be speaking with us for episode 21. So this is episode 19. 2 episodes from now, we should have Dr. Jared Younger on. And it actually ties in with what we talked today about quite a bit. Greg talked about the inflammation with fibromyalgia, and that's actually one of the things that Dr. Younger has studied, is the inflammation actually in the brain of people with fibromyalgia. You know what, you guys? I totally forgot to show you the rest of the box. It was because I did it once already. So let me show you really quick. But we'll come back to Dr. Younger. So you pull the device out. There's a card in there. This card is actually pretty important. So I do want to highlight it for you guys. I'll hold it up to the camera there. You can see it's got down at the bottom, it's got the phone number and email address. If you have any questions, if you need help, if you're wondering if it's working, if you're experiencing anything odd, any questions at all, just reach out to them by phone or by email. I have been so impressed with the responsiveness of this company. When I reached out to them, it was kind of last minute. When I reached out to them to see if they would consider donating one for our Stories of Hope and Healing event back in July. It was just a few days before, and I actually heard back from them pretty immediately with a yes. I was surprised I didn't have to convince them to donate anything. We didn't have to negotiate or anything. They just said yes. It was awesome. So if you have any questions about your device, do reach out to them. I have also heard through the grapevine that while they do have a return policy, I'm actually looking here really quick. I don't see it right in front of me. I want to say it's a 30-day money-back guarantee. But double check that because I don't have it in front of me. And I have heard through the grapevine that if you're getting close to the end of your return window and you're still not sure about it, reach out to them, contact them, because they can give you some ideas of maybe different ways to try it or to use it. I've even heard of them extending the return policy sometimes because they want to help people, and they want people to use it and have success. So if you guys do decide to try this, don't be afraid to reach out to them for help, for advice, or even to extend that return policy if you feel like you need a little longer to try it before making your decision. The next thing in the box is like a little quick start guide. And one of the things that I really like about it is it actually has a little tracker right there, where you can keep track of your use and keep track of the results that you see. I'm also going to put a link if you go to today's show notes. If you go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com/19, we will also have a link to the tracker that I created that lets you track your pain and your fatigue symptoms. There's also a third line on that tracker, which actually is I believe is actually says medications. I'm totally blanking on what it actually says, but I'm pretty sure it's medications. Anyway, what you can do is in that line, you can also track, like maybe use an O for Oska to track that you used the Oska that day and be able to see is your pain level changing at all as you use this. So I will have a link out there for that symptom tracking log for you to be able to use, which is also an awesome thing for you to be able to use with your doctor to show them both just your pain and your fatigue levels, but also to show them your results with this. Next, we have another little divider right there, and underneath that is where you'll find the full user's manual and the charging cable. You can tell it's just a regular USB charge cable, which is why it's so great with traveling. I won't have to take anything extra. And the elastic strap. So if you have low back pain and you want to wear it around, you can put this around your waist with the device. With that, and that rubber grippy part it's not gonna slide out of there. So you can just like strap it to your low back. All right, that is everything that's in the box. So sorry about that, you guys. I missed giving you everything there. So now back to Dr. Younger. He did do some research showing that inflammation in the brains of those of us with fibromyalgia. So we're super excited to talk to him about that. He's also done a lot of research on the use of low-dose naltrexone for fibromyalgia. He actually published, I believe, the first study that really looked at LDN for fibromyalgia. There's honestly so many things I want to talk to him about. He's done so much good work for those of us with fibromyalgia that we could probably have him on here for 5 episodes. So we'll just have to see what we end up discussing in that interview. I know we're going to talk about the studies on inflammation. We'll just see where we go from there. And so I hope you guys will tune into that. That will be episode 21. Our next episode is going to be our Ask the Coach episode. It's our Dear Tami episode, and I'm going to be talking about, it was a question sent in from a listener. That is what that episode is all about. And the question from the listener was, how do I lose weight with fibromyalgia? And in our next episode, I am answering that question kind of. I actually take you back a step further and talk about why we have a hard time losing weight, why we gained weight in the first place, because there's a few things that really need to be checked out and addressed in order to make any kind of weight loss routine work for you. There's a lot of things with fibromyalgia that are going on in your body physically. A lot of things that control your hunger, that control your appetite, that control how your body processes the food that you eat, whether it stores it as fat or burns it as fuel. There's a lot of things going on in your body that if you just try to lose weight without addressing those things, it's just going to be so frustrating for you, and you're going to feel like a failure because it's not going to work very well. So I'm going to be actually talking about all of those things that are going on in your body so that you know what to go talk to your doctors about. Make sure that stuff's working first, and then pretty much most things are going to work for you. So go take a listen to that episode when it comes out in a couple weeks, and let me know what you think. If you have more questions, we can totally address them as well. So thank you guys so much for being here. Thanks for watching our second unboxing of the day, and it's been awesome doing this for you guys. I love it. So please do share this with your friends. Rate us on on Apple Podcasts, do a review if you can. Those often help people decide whether or not they're going to listen to something. You guys know how that is for you. Other people are no different. So if you've enjoyed this podcast, if you're learning things, I would really love it if you would give us a rating and review. And don't forget, all of the goodies are out there, fibromyalgiapodcast.com/19. We'll have that discount code. We will have the unboxing video. We will have that tracking log. We'll have all the goodies for you. The $55 off coupon, that's all out there. And I will see you guys here next time. Bye. And that wraps up another episode of the Fibromyalgia Podcast. If you're ready to see if working with a fibromyalgia coach can help you feel better faster, visit fibromyalgiapodcast.com, where you can schedule a complimentary consultation to explore your options. During this call, we'll discuss your fibromyalgia journey, what your needs and challenges are, and give you recommendations on how to reach your goals the quickest way possible. Thank you for tuning in today, and join us next time as we explore more ways to help you take back control of your life and health. My music and sound editing were done by Daniel Munkus at Subtle Soup Records. Podcast management and creative copy by Sonia Louise of Performance Podcasting.